Hey everyone, welcome to your Money Map, sponsored by Limra's Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatsky. Very glad to have you with us today. What if the secret to a secure retirement wasn't about saving more through ironclad willpower or constant sacrifice? What if instead it was about smart planning, automation, and well placed nudges? That is the philosophy driving much of the work of my guest today, Shlomo Benartzi. Shlomo is a world renowned behavioral economist. His efforts have reshaped how millions of people save for retirement. Alongside Nobel laureate Richard Thaler, he pioneered Save More Tomorrow, a program that helps employees painlessly boost their retirement savings. We'll hear more about that in just a little bit. He is also professor emeritus at UCLA's Anderson School of Management and a distinguished senior fellow at the Wharton Behavior Change for Good initiative. He's the founder of Pension Plus, a startup dedicated to providing a personalized retirement income plan for all Americans. And today, Shlomo is joining us to talk about how behavioral science, automation, and AI are transforming retirement planning. Shlomo, welcome to the show. I've been waiting for this one for a long time.
Thank you.
A big part of your career is, as I said, save more tomorrow. You're very well known for it. So can we just start there? Explain how this program works and why it's been so successful in basically revolutionizing retirement savings participation.
Yeah, if you think about savings, it's generally difficult. It used to be extremely difficult. When I joined my first job in 1994, you first have to walk to the HR office, and there were a pile of papers, and you had to know what to fill and where to fill. And if you accidentally allocated your money in a way that didn't add up to 100%, they might just toss it away. Um, at one university, actually, University of Texas in Austin, they actually gave people information about the 4,000 funds that they had available. So you left HR with two phone, if for those who remember kind of the yellow pages, these were two thick, huge manuals that you took. If you had a bad back, you could actually hurt your back just carrying it. And you were supposed to pick the investments, you were supposed to fill paperwork, you had no clue what to do about it. It was overwhelming, let alone to decide how much to save. And the idea was, can we take all of this and just make it easy? One of the lines that my collaborator, Richard Taylor, often uses it, that the one lesson from behavioral economics, if you took just one lesson, is make it easy. What
Mm.
if we could make the right choice the easy choice? And that's what we aim to do. The program is embarrassingly simple, actually. We actually started it with a mid-sized company in the Midwest, manufacturing company. We were working with blue collar employees. They were really struggling. We asked them if they want to save, and they all said yes. And we said, do it. And they were like, you academics don't understand anything. We could barely pay the rent. This is not easy. We don't have the money. So then we came up with this program where we said, you don't have the money today. What if you start saving in the future? And they were like, wow, that sounds good. We kind of imagine ourselves exercising more in the future, eating healthier, drinking less, volunteering in the community, all the good things. There's a lot of research on it that it's easier to imagine doing the right things in the future. So that was one ingredient. But then, of course, there would be a question when to do it.
Mm.
So we figured out maybe we do it when people make more money, when they get a pay raise, so they don't have to cut their spending. So we say, why don't you save more whenever you get a pay raise? And 80% of those employees who were struggling, who said they cannot save more today, said, we'd like to save more tomorrow. That sounds good. Of course, the problem is that if they have to remember to do it every time they get a pay raise, nobody would do it.
Of course not.
Yeah, exactly. So we automated it. Once they signed up, every time they got a pay raise, they would automatically save more. They can opt out. We don't force them to do it. Virtually almost nobody did. Every single person who ever opted out kept the higher saving rate they reached. If they went from 3 to 6 to 9 and say, I can't do more than that, they never went back to 3. With hundreds of employees, it never happened. To cut a long story short, 3.5 years later, those employees quadrupled their saving rate from 3.5% to about 14%. There are now 26 million Americans who save more tomorrow. And interestingly, it was actually adopted as a policy starting 9 months and 24 days ago, January 1st, 25. Every new retirement plan set in the US has to actually automatically escalate the saving rates of employees, making it easy to do the right things. And of course, everyone can opt out um, if they cannot afford to save.
No, it's been when I said revolutionary, it's been revolutionary. I've been covering the quest to save for retirement as a journalist for decades, and I vividly remember when, as part of the Pension Protection Act in 2006, auto enrollment, auto escalation, default into target date funds, all of your innovations were put into the law. And companies were allowed to do this, and participation in plans soar. We're seeing headlines on the regular these days that tell us that Gen Z is actually doing so much better than previous generations when it comes to saving for retirement. This is why. This is why that they're doing. This is why they're doing better. So you deserve a ton of credit for that. Let's talk though about the other side of the coin. Let's talk about spending. Research from the Alliance for Lifetime Income shows 47% of retirees say that spending money in retirement gives them anxiety. 33% say they're spending faster than anticipated. What's becoming very clear is that decumulation needs a touch of the same magic. Auto features are really not relevant in this space, at least not yet. And you are working to try to close that with Pension Plus, which, as I mentioned, is one of your recent projects. Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm wondering if you should, though it's a very interesting study. So you're saying 47% are anxious about spending their money.
Hmm.
There's a psychological cost to spending money where you don't get the paycheck. You're actually taking it out of your assets. What I've done with my team before the show, we created a virtual sample of the audience. We used new AI technologies to generate your audience, the kind of the same profile, and we could actually ask them questions, and we could actually see if they feel the same way as this study. So I'm going to ask actually my team, who is kind of in the back room here, to virtually pose a similar question. Might not be apples to apples because how you ask the question makes a big difference.
Sure.
But let's ask your audience if how do they feel about spending money in retirement? Does it make them anxious to spend money in retirement? A yes or a no? We'll ask them, and we might also break it down by gender and see
That
how
would
it
be
varies.
That'd be great. I believe, and I would have to confirm this, but I believe that the Alliance research showed that women were more um, anxious than men about spending in retirement, and to me that would make sense, right? We know that we live longer. I think that's pretty widely expected and accepted, and that would lead to greater anxiety, along with the fact that we don't have as sizable of retirement account balances going into retirement.
Yeah, I think the fact that women give birth, they lose, they have interruptions. That actually makes it harder to say. But we just got the results. The question we've asked your audience, or at least the digital twins, which is one way to think about it. How do you feel about spending money in retirement? Does it make you anxious? Yes, it makes me anxious. 53%. No, I'm not anxious, 47%. Very similar to the study you've mentioned by the Alliance. But then we actually split it by gender, and you're absolutely right. There's a big gap. Female, 56% are anxious about spending money in retirement. For male, it's 40%. And some didn't want to answer the question about the gender.
Yeah. It's very interesting. How do you pull together this AI audience, Shlomo? Where does how does how do you do this, and how do you do this, and what's the goal in using the technology this way?
So if you're able to know how people think, and that technology often allows us to also predict how they would behave, you could actually start optimizing it. And as you're thinking about retirement income and the decumulation, if we could better understand the needs of people, their preferences, how they feel about decumulation, we could start actually thinking as an industry about solutions that better fit them. Here's one thing that the insurance industry has been doing for decades that actually doesn't resonate with the audience, and maybe we'll pull them and see if I'm right. But we have this idea that people would like the same paycheck month after month, year after year, forever. It needs to be exactly the same. Now, you could say, okay, maybe there's an adjustment for inflation, but let's just keep it simple. If there's no inflation, we've operated with this assumption that people would like the same paycheck forever. Um, there would be a typical, annuity where someone would give people a big lump sum and gonna get a monthly paycheck for life. What we find out is that a lot of people would rather spend more earlier in retirement. I'd rather take my grandkids to Disneyland when I'm younger and able to actually fly and not lose some of them in Disneyland. Um, Others say that they'd rather be conservative and they'd rather see things getting better during retirement and start with a smaller paycheck, but know that it would keep going up. And then you have a segment that is like, I want it to be the same month after month. The two things. One is these technologies allow us to start quickly understand what people want so we could better target our solutions. And the other thing is, it's a general point, but we forget about the need for personalization when it comes to the decumulation. You made the point that women live longer than men. If you think about it, we might be married in our 30s and 40s, but as you get into the 60s, 70s, especially 80s, men might die, women might still outlive them. And where I go with this, there will be more differences, whether it is, circumstances, whether it is we develop preferences. And when you have all those differences, think about it, we don't only accumulate assets over our lifetime, we also accumulate differences. There's the need to personalize the solution. And that's something that I think as an industry we've actually missed and don't pay enough attention to. Going back to our previous question, we do see actually that female women are more concerned about spending money in retirement. Some of it is for a good reason. They live longer. Um, 58% of women feel concerned about spending money in retirement, whereas for male, it's 49%. So we do have the gap you've seen actually in the research of LIMRA and the Alliance.
When we ask them the question about whether they want the income that they're receiving to stay the same, to go up, to go down, what does AI have to say about that? And do you see similar differences along gender lines there? I'm wondering.
A good question, excellent question. So the first thing is yes, our virtual participants are digital twins. Your virtual listeners have responded with the following ideas and preferences. Only 41% would like the same paycheck month after month, year after year in retirement. About 30% wanted to start lower and get higher over time, life gets better. And another 30% or so would like it to start higher, enjoy retirement while I'm able to, and then have it go down over time. But the main thing is that if you think about it, more than half the people do not like the solution that the entire industry, both insurance industry and financial planning industry, is pitching to everyone.
And that is, I think, at the heart of what you're doing with Pension Plus, that you're offering the opportunity for a more individualized prescription, so to speak. Can you just talk about how that works and or how it's going to work? I don't believe it's out yet.
Yeah, I can surely talk about how it works and the overall vision. The overall vision is that we need to find a way to personalize at scale for the decumulation. That is critical because people are different. And you need a good financial engine behind the scenes. You need good algorithms that would properly personalize. Um, I can tell you, sitting with a lot of financial planners, looking at a lot of planning software packages they use, very often there's very little personalization. They don't even know that they don't personalize. We chatted about the gender difference. I'm yet to see I'm yet to see one financial planning package that truly personalize your one way, that virtually accept the fact that women live longer. But even within kind of this population of women, not everyone is in great health. I'm yet to see one financial planning package that asks one or two questions about your health and adjusts the runway to your gender, to your runway, to your health. And that makes a huge difference because you might spend too much if you're in great health with great family genes and your grandma is still alive at 100 and you're spending like someone who had a heart attack and is a male and has horrible family history of dying from heart attacks. If you're gonna spend like him, you're gonna run out of money because your runway is so much longer. What we're trying to do is have the best financial engineering factoring health, inflation, how much you want to leave to your kids. You'd be shocked how many financial planning packages don't answer one of the most basic questions people have. If I want to leave 100,000 for my kids, how much less should I spend every month?
Yep.
Simple, important question that we don't get the answer. So Financial engineering behind the scene is critical. It has to include personalization. How do we bring it to everyone? We need to use the new AI technologies. I'm not saying that we need to toss away human advisors. If you look in the medical literature, hybrid models, doctors and machine often perform incredibly well. And we should take those lessons as an industry, adapt to the new reality faster because financial advisors do not have the scale and the capacity in the US to cater to all Americans. So if we want to help them help more Americans, we have to give them the technology so they can actually scale the advice and provide it to many more people.
You're often a step ahead on many of these many of these things. You were a step ahead 8 years ago when you wrote a paper about annuities. As we talk about income solutions, this is one of the tools that financial advisors, that insurance companies, that workplace plans are using to create income for people that will last for the rest of their lives. And yet, there are people who don't like them. You wrote a paper that basically said people don't like them because they perceive them as unfair. Can you talk about that?
I mean, they might perceive them as unfair. If I die, the insurance company would make money. It's kind of hard to understand the idea that those policies are written for many people. Some will die young, some would live to 120, and the insurance company is not hoping that I'll die young. They're just managing the risk and distributing, in a sense, that pile across everyone based on how long they live. Um, but there is that sense that I'm going to write a huge check today. I'm going to get a little paycheck every month. And if I die, the day after I gave the insurance company all my money or a lot of it, it's a huge loss. It feels like this idea of a loss, which we know we're very sensitive to losses psychologically, even if they're small. And to some degree, it also feels unfair. The insurance company is going to make money. I do think, though, the problem with annuities is much broader than that. I think one of the issues is that we are failing to provide holistic financial planning in the US and in most of the world. We would have advisors who've been trained and know very well how to pick investment portfolios. And that's how they make a living.
Mm.
So they're going to pick this ETF. They might know maybe that this is the lower fees and it's better for the client. If you're wealthy individuals, they might actually consider some private investments for you, but they're in the business of accumulating assets. They haven't really learned how to create a retirement income plan. No disrespect, but when I gave a talk to 400 financial advisors and I asked how many of you create income plans for your clients, 70%, 70 raised their hands. When I asked how many of you are comfortable you're doing a great job on behalf of your clients, 2% raised their hands,
Well,
2%. So now we got this bucket. There's another bucket, insurance agents. And they're often treated as selling insurance products. Often that's how they're compensated. So they think everyone should buy an annuity and a lot of it. Well, there's a problem there too, because if you're 65 and you have a brain tumor, no point in buying an annuity. So what we're missing as an industry is the need to have a more holistic plan. I think a plan could have actually equities, it could have annuities in it, it could have whatever is needed to actually create retirement incomes that provides both the protection and the growth that people might want in a way that is personalized. There's a gap there and there's an opportunity. I think whoever is going to deliver on that not only would do the right things for the clients, if they know how to frame it, they would absolutely be able to attract more clients because it's a huge problem. Let me tell you the story of Leslie. Leslie goes to financial advisors. She is 50 something. She lost her job. She's not sure if she's going to get another job, but she accumulated a couple of millions and she wants to figure out how much she could spend. We went to the top of the advisors, and the two things that they all have done. One is first they bragged about them, not thinking about let's listen to the client, but that's a human nature. And the other one, they were explaining how brilliant their investment strategy is. Not a single one catered to where we started it, the fear of spending too much, and how can we actually create a spending plan that would cater to Leslie and relieve. She could not care less whether the money is invested in a small cap emerging market fund. There was like, these were details that she didn't care about. They missed the big picture, the holistic plan.
So you are advocating for wholesale change in different industries, for a sea change in how business is done. And look, I agree with you. I think there is progress that needs to be made. But for the people at Peak 65, for the people, the 11,000 people turning 65 years old every single day who have retirement staring them in the face and want to figure out how much they can afford to spend, what should they do right now?
It's not easy. It's not easy. We're trying to do it at Pension Plus, that it's not easy. Um, I don't have a magic solution because it's all about personalization. Um, it's so different. We find out in our research that you could have two people who are lookalikes. They're the same age, they accumulated the same amount of money, but because they have different lifespans and because they have different preferences, the paycheck they should start with is 6 times different.
Well,
6 times different. I wrote a very beautiful piece about it for the Wall Street Journal. Maybe when you post it later, you could put the link, but it was virtually taking two people who retired at the same age with the same amount of money, but slightly different health, slightly different bequest preferences, slightly different desires, whether to spend it early or late in retirement, and so on. And the paychecks were not slightly different, they were 6 times different. So, unfortunately, I don't have a quick solution, but for those who are interviewing advisors, if the entire discussion is about how the money would be invested, that's creating an investment plan. That's not creating a decumulation plan. There would be a red flag. If there is a discussion about how much you could spend, when you're likely to run out of money, what can we do to ensure you don't run out of money? There would be a better place to get advice. I wish I had a better solution. Now, one big red flag, huge red flag. I see people going to GPT and asking it for financial advice. It's an incredible place to get general knowledge, to learn a bit. It's a horrible place to go and execute a financial plan. And the technology is there if someone would use it the right way, but not just naively going there. I sat with a retiree who was leaving a company that still had a defined benefit pension, still had kind of this old fashioned, you get a paycheck for life. And he was asking GPT what to do because he could cash it out. He could either get, I'm just throwing out numbers, $5,000 a month for life, or he could take $1 million and it's his. And the answers provided by the machine looked very credible and sensible. The machine never asked him if he's in good health or bad health.
Mm,
That's a critical component. That deal to virtually take the lump sum is incredible if you think you're going to die in a year. On
right.
the other hand, if you think you're going to live for 40 years, getting $5,000 a month for the rest of your life is not a bad deal. Never checked if it's adjusted for inflation. Never checked if the employer includes medical benefits. Some employers, like UCLA, if you retire and you take the monthly paycheck, you get healthcare for life for you and your family. All of those things were missing. So we're looking at the trends. People use more and more AI for financial advice. Decumulation, too much is at stake. You can't do it with GPT right now.
Shlomo Benartzi, such a pleasure to talk to you. That should be your next article for the Wall Street Journal because they just ran one this weekend about the wonderful financial advice that people are getting from GPT and other services. So I'm looking to you for for the counterpoint to that point. Where should we go to see more of your work?
Simply my website, my first name, last name, altogether.com.
Okay, I'm going to spell it. I'm going
ShlomoBenartzi.com.
to spell it for people. It's SHLOMOBENARTZI.com. Thank you so much for being with us. And if you're looking for more information from Limra's Alliance for Lifetime Income, you can find it at protectedincome.org. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.